here? Are there any matters that we need to take up before we bring jurors out?
Judge, the only thing is I'm informed that when the state plays this 1 hour recording, I'm informed you need to just play through the audio, no video, just audio, and all the way up is what I'm being told.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the projector. I think we have to turn the system on, is my understanding. And then you'll just let me know. All right. Let's bring jurors. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Was there anything you needed, Mr. Arbor? I'm sorry.
Yes, sure. With respect to this particular witness, my understanding is that Detective Gill is going to be called to testify about a statement that our client gave on 4/26/13. Respectfully, we did not raise any motions to suppress any of the statements that Mr. Broyhill made to the authorities. He gave actually 3 statements, one on the 23rd of April, one on the 25th of April, and one on the 26th of April. There was no issues that we could ascertain with respect to the admissibility of the statements for constitutional purposes. Therefore, we raised no motion to suppress any of the 3 statements made by Mr. Broyhill. He was Mirandized. There was some issue regarding his medical condition, but we raised no objection to the statements going in. However, it is my understanding that it is the state's intention to only use this statement, the one of April 26, 2013. That is prejudicial to the defendant. We respectfully submit that if he's going to put the statements in, he needs to put all of them in. He needs to put them all in order to show fairly to the jury the statement that the statements that Mr. Broyhill made, so that they can fairly decide the evidence in this case. To selectively choose only the statement made on April 26, 2013, particularly since it falls in context, not so much with the statement on the 25th, because that was sort of a, they went to interview him, there was very little talk about anything substantive. He was in the process of getting medications, and they suggested they'd come back on the next day, which was the 26th. But certainly the interview on the 23rd is a precursor to the interview of the 26th. In fact, we would respectfully say it's all part of the same interview process by these officers. The only difference is that my understanding is that Detective Gill was present only for the interview on the 26th, not for the one on the 23rd. Detective Morse ran all of these interviews primarily. Detective Gill did ask some questions, I believe, at the one on the 26th toward the end of the interview. But the bulk of the interviews were conducted by Detective Morse, who's the lead detective in this case, who's been here for all of his testimony, for all of the testimony. He ran the interview on the 23rd with another detective, a Detective Gibney, and then of course the one on the 25th, when they attempted to follow up to the interview on the 23rd, couldn't be done because of my client getting medication. So it was continued then to this one that they're offering to give now, the 26th. So respectfully, if you're going to put the statement in, all 3 days basically constitute one statement by the defendant. And to be fair, all of it needs to be put in. To selectively choose only a portion of it constitutes prosecutorial misconduct, because it is selectively trying to take evidence and not give all of the evidence, some of which is, we would respectfully submit as exculpatory to the defendant, because some of the evidence on the 25th is very helpful to the defendant. And by trying to intentionally omit it from this process by only entering the one that's in on the 26th is an attempt by the prosecutor to basically provide only a limited amount of evidence out of an entire interview. If an interview that extends over a period of 3 days. If the interview is going to go in, it should go in its entirety. Now, if he chooses not to put the 25th or the 23rd in through Detective Gill, I understand that, because Detective Gill wasn't present for the first part, but Detective Morse was present for all of it. And it is my understanding that Detective Morris will be called as a witness in this case. And if he's called as a witness at this case, he should be, if they're going to let the 26th in today, then we should be able to get into the interviews of the 23rd and the 25th. And the 25th was not, there was no audio recording of it. There is a transcript, there is a report about it. I think there's a transcript of it. There's a transcript of the 25th. Yeah. I'm sorry, there is a transcript of the 25th. It just, and there is an audio recording of the 25th. My apologies, all three. So all three would need to go in. Not saying with this witness. If you're going to call this witness, he's only here for the 26th. But at some point, when Detective Morris takes the stand, we need to be able to get into the entirety of this interview, which includes the questions that were asked on the 23rd and the 25th, because they are a precursor to what happens on the 26th. Anything other than that, we respectfully would submit is a violation of our client's due process rights, both under the state and federal constitutions, and we would strongly object. And at the end, if the evidence is not submitted in that fashion, we will respectfully move for a mistrial.
Mr. Fawcett, do you wish to be heard, sir?
Judge, the state does intend to call Detective Gill and enter in the third interview referenced as Friday, April 26th, through Detective Gill. The state does intend to call Detective Morse, as I've told Mr. Arbor. The state does not intend at this time to admit the defendant's statement listed as Tuesday, April 23rd, nor does the state intend to address the April 25th, the Thursday, because he says, why don't y'all come back, in the morning, I think, I'll fill in, ready to answer your questions. He's advised of his rights all three times. The recording of the first interview is not great. But having said that, the state only intends to, through Detective Gill, put on this third statement, and the state does intend to call Detective Morris, does not intend to admit the April 23rd statement or the April 25th brief statement. You will find in this statement with Detective Morris that Detective Morris and Detective Gill are in the room, and Detective Gill is the witness. I'll put this transcript through at this time of the proceedings. You'll find that there are five to seven maybe references, such as, remember last time we talked, those, and you will hear that, that will be part of this interview. But having said that, I do believe that I'm not aware of an entire week's worth of three separate statements being one whole statement the state must admit under the rules of evidence, and that is the state's intentions at this time.
All right. Do we have copies either of, ideally, transcripts, but the recordings, at least the recordings for the interview of the 23rd and the 25th?
We do.
We do. I don't have them right here.
That's fine.
We can go print off a copy for the court.
At the lunch recess will be fine, but I'll evaluate the objection under Rule 106 and also the other grounds stated by the defense. I'm not going to make a ruling on it now, but primarily the consideration will be whether the remainder of the related recording ought, in fairness, be admitted into evidence at the same time as the interview of the 26th. And I understand that in any event, it would not be done at the same time. It would be done at a later time, but during the state's case. But I'll evaluate the objection and have a ruling for it after I've had an opportunity to review all three of the recordings. The first one I'll hear when the witness is on the stand, and the second two I'll evaluate from a transcript or the recording itself.
Thank you.
We have both. I think we have a recording of. No, we have both. We have the transcript and the recording of both the 23rd and the 25th that we can make. Transcript
would be ideal, because I can review it faster. But if there's some reason I need to see the recording, I'll be glad to do that. But I think the transcript would be sufficient for this type of evaluation.
I may have that. I may be in a position to provide you with a paper copy at the end of this witness's testimony, Your Honor.
That's fine. All right. Anything else?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring
Nothing
jurors.
further at this time.
Yes, sir. Let's bring jurors then. Mr. Fawcett, further evidence for the state?
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Dexter Gill to the stand.
Sir, if you would, please place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Fawcett?
Thank you, Your Honor. State your name for the court, please.
William Dexter Gill.
Are you currently employed, Mr. Gill?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. Recently retired?
About a year ago, sir.
Okay. Where did you retire from?
The Raleigh Police Department.
All right. How long were you with the Raleigh Police Department?
Approximately 28 and a half years.
And what were your duties at the Raleigh Police Department on the date of your retirement?
I was assigned to Homicide Unit 1,
How long were you with the homicide unit at the Raleigh Police Department?
approximately 6.5 years.
Were you working the homicide unit on Monday, April 22nd, 2013?
Yes, sir, I was.
All right. On that date, did you respond to the Hahn residence at 1705 Tillwood Place?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Were you the lead investigator in this matter?
No, sir, Detective Morris was lead.
Okay. Was Detective Morris at the Hahn residence that Monday evening when you responded?
Yes, sir, it was.
Just generally, what did you do at the residence?
Didn't do a whole lot at the residence. I met with Detective Fry and Detective Torrance from the aggravated assault unit initially, and they briefed me on what they had been told once they arrived.
Did you seize any evidence from the Hahn residence or anything like that?
No, sir, did not.
Let me direct your attention to that Friday, April 26, 2013. Tell us what you did in reference to this particular case, Detective Gill.
I responded with Detective Morse to Wake Medical Center to conduct an interview with Mr. Broyhill.
You see Mr. Broyhill here in court today?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you, sir. Was this interview audio recorded?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. And where did this interview take place?
It took place in the hospital room at Wake Medical Center.
Who was present during this interview of the defendant, Mr. Broyhill?
Myself, Detective Morse, and the defendant, Mr. Broyhill.
Can you tell us generally the logistics of this interview, where the defendant was in this hospital room? And
The defendant was lying in the hospital bed. Detective Morris was, I believe if I'm correct, was standing on the left-hand side of the bed. I was on the right-hand side, seated in a chair.
And an audio recording was made of this Friday, April 26th interview?
That is correct.
Who made the recording?
Detective Morris.
All right. Have you had time to listen to this recording before today?
Yes, sir, I have.
Are you able to identify the voices on the recording?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize what State's Exhibit 83 is?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is State's Exhibit 83?
It is a compact disc containing the recording that was made on that date.
How do you know that?
It's my initials that I initial the date that I'll listen to it.
Okay. Does State's Exhibit 83 accurately relate the actual conversation that occurred between you, Detective Morris, and the defendant, Jonathan Broyhill,
Yes, sir, it does.
on April 26, 2013?
Yes, sir, it does.
Have there been any additions or deletions to the audio recording, to the best of your knowledge?
No, sir.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, the state would enter into evidence State's Exhibit 83.
Any objection?
Subject to my reservations regarding all of Mr. Broyhill's statements coming in, we would have no objection to this coming in, assuming all other ones were to be brought in.
It's allowed.
Detective Gill, was the defendant's statement to you and Detective Morris on April 26, 2013, was that statement transcribed?
Yes, sir, it was.
Have you had an opportunity to review the transcript and compare it to the audio recording of State's Exhibit 83?
Yes, sir, I have.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
State's Exhibit 84, Detective Gill. Do you recognize what State's Exhibit 84 is?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is State's Exhibit 84?
It's a transcript of the recording, Exhibit 83, that I reviewed on January 8th, 2015.
Is State's Exhibit 84 referenced to be the transcript, a complete and accurate representation of the defendant Jonathan Broyhill's statement made to you, Detective Morris, on Friday, April 26, 2013?
Yes, sir.
Are the statements attributed in State's Exhibit 84, the transcript, the statements attributed to the particular person in the transcript accurate as to the voice or voices on the audio recording that you were present for on April 26?
Yes, sir, they are.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer into evidence State's Exhibit 84.
Any objection?
Subject to my other objection.
All right. It's allowed for illustrative purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state would ask to publish State's Exhibit 83 by playing the audio recording, and the state does have copies of the transcripts as well, State's Exhibit 84, for the jurors in the court.
All right, members of the jury, I'm going to give you an instruction about the transcript you'll receive. The typewritten transcripts of a recorded conversation has been introduced into evidence for the purposes of illustrating and explaining the testimony of this witness. The transcripts purport to identify speakers engaged in such conversations. I've admitted the transcripts for the limited and secondary purpose of aiding you in following the contents of the conversation as you listen to the DVR recording, and also to aid you in identifying the speakers. You are specifically instructed that whether the transcript correctly or incorrectly reflects the contents of the conversation or the identity of the speaker is entirely up to you to determine based upon your own evaluation of the evidence and from your own examination of the transcript in relation to your hearing of the tape recording itself, or the DVR itself, which is the primary evidence of its own contents. And if you should determine that the transcript is in any respect incorrect or unreliable, then you should disregard it to that extent. The transcript may not be considered by you for any other purpose. And I do remind you that in the event you wish to take notes regarding the contents of this recording, you should do so on your own notepads and not on the transcript, because ultimately that transcript will be collected from you. All right. Yes, you may publish the recording. And bailiff, if you'll distribute the notebooks.
talk a little bit this morning? Okay. Absolutely. That's all I, just give us a few minutes. All right, thanks. Oh, no, they've been stepping out.
I don't know who you have.
I'm the detective, yes. Right, I'm the detective, this is Detective Gill. Yep, we're fine, I appreciate it.
I just want to make
Oh, absolutely, I appreciate your concern. Yeah, thank you, sir. I'm planning on talking to your mom and dad later on this afternoon. I know, like I said, they were calling, wanting to know if I'd be able to see you and how you were doing. I wanted to call them this afternoon and let them know that you seem to be doing pretty well. So like I said, your hands are looking pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Whatever it shows, you stick a tube down my nose and see what's going on.
Make sure it's healing. Okay. Well, good. There's still no idea when you might be leaving?
No, sir.
Okay. And I hadn't heard a definitive time either, just basically what I get from you. Like I told you yesterday, there's just a couple of things I want to go over just to clarify a couple of things. Obviously, I've been working pretty diligently with this in the last few days, and some things have come up that kind of raised questions in my mind. I wanted to come straight to John and ask John directly. Just a couple of clarifying questions. I think you'll be able to clear it up for me. But before I ask you anything, I want to read your rights again, make sure you understand those, okay? Before I ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent and not make any statements. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions, and to have him or anyone else with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you by the court before questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you'll still have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk to a lawyer. Do you understand all those rights? And are you willing to waive those rights and talk to me this morning?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'll need it from the attorney when it gets to
When he gets to that point? Okay. The last week, before this even happened, you and Jamie and Nate had gone to the beach. Gone to the beach, is that right? Where did you guys go? You went to Emerald Isle. Okay. Do you remember what day you went to Emerald Isle?
It was
That was last Friday.
yeah, they had gone down earlier in the week.
Okay.
I came down with some friends on the Friday.
Okay. So you didn't join Jamie and Nate until Friday, but they had gone down earlier in the week. You know what day they went down?
I don't remember, sir.
Okay. Are you thinking it was early that week, or?
It was early in the week. It was early.
Okay. And you guys stay at a house, a hotel, friends? Okay. And who else was there?
Billy was there, Nation's friend.
You know her name?
Versha.
Versha?
Versha.
So Billy, Nation, Jamie, yourself, Nick, Gary, and Versha. Okay.
David Blair.
Okay. So you were there just primarily over the weekend?
I was just there that Friday.
Okay. And when did you come back to Raleigh?
On Sunday, when everyone else came back.
Do you know about what time you got back to Raleigh on Sunday?
It was late evening, I would say 7:30.
Okay. And how did you get down there to Raleigh?
I rode with Kelly.
And when you came back to Raleigh, did you stay at your place that night, or?
I did,
Okay. Is this the house on Glasgow?
yes.
Okay. And who else stayed there with you?
Don was there.
Okay. Nobody else stayed with you?
No,
Okay. Were there any, how was the weekend down at the beach?
weekend was fun.
Okay. No problems, concerns, nothing came up?
No, nothing at all.
Everybody was happy?
Yeah,
Okay. No talk about work or anything like that? Or okay. And come Monday, what was your plan that day as far as your daily activities?
everything I had planned to do. Was, assimilation
But no, like banking appointments, doctor's appointments,
No.
post office, haircut, nothing?
No, not that I
Okay.
remember. It was,
Now, Monday, did you go anywhere other than over to Jamie Nation's house, or?
I don't remember.
Oh, your cell phone, what's that number?
919
Uh-huh.
332
Mm-hmm.
1520.
And do you have any other phones?
Yes,
That's the only one you use?
yes.
And do you have any other cell phones?
I did at one time when I got my iPhone back several years ago. I had to get the iPhone and wouldn't trade my old phone in, so I kept it, but I couldn't tell you the number that's on the phone.
Okay. But the number that you use is that 332 number on a regular basis?
Yes.
And that's the iPhone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about any email addresses you have?
Use John Broyhill
Mm-hmm.
at gmail.com.
Do you have any other email accounts?
That's the one I use.
You say mainly use.
I had a work account, john@strategies.com, but those are the only two.
John at Strategies.
That's Scotland Strategies.
That's SkylandStrategies.com. Is John Jon or?
Jail. Yes.
But that was just for work related stuff.
Yes.
Let me explain to you a little bit about what my job is and what I do, okay? My job is not to put people in jail. My job is not to just go out there and make an arrest. My job is ultimately is to find the truth. And if that leads to an arrest, then so be it. But first and foremost, it's to find the truth. And the way I do that is I end up talking to a lot of people. I end up collecting a lot of evidence and a lot of items that may have some significance or may not. But I try to look at everything I possibly can. And whenever I sit down with anybody, including yourself, I want to believe everything they tell me. but I wouldn't be a very good detective if I just took their word for it. So anytime somebody tells me something, I have to go back and look at something else, you know, whether verify it through somebody else's statement or through some physical evidence or through phone records or whatever, to try to validate what they're telling me. And you know, regardless of what I sit down with, I want to believe what they tell me. But I have to go back and look at some things. And you know, I asked you earlier about the cancer issue, and I want to touch on that a little bit. And your roommate seems to believe that you have MS. Do you have MS, John?
At one time with them,
Okay. And when was this?
back in summer.
Did you see a doctor about that?
Yeah, I did. I thought I had it.
Which doctor was that you saw? Okay.
So
Do you remember if it was a hospital, a doctor's office, practice,
it was through Rex Healthcare.
at Rex
It
Health?
was, yeah.
Is this Rex Healthcare on Wake Forest Road there?
Yeah.
You just go to the emergency room, or?
Yeah, I actually went to see a doctor there. But just one time. Wasn't,
But you think that was last summer?
yes.
Okay. Now, what about the cancer issue? How did that come about? And why were you telling people you had cancer when obviously that wasn't accurate?
That part I have. Just the part. I mean,
Right.
clearly I don't know how simple that's really, I don't have it.
Right.
I don't know what made me tell people that.
You go to a doctor's appointment with Jamie Nation to an oncologist appointment to do at one point?
Yes,
And what happened there at that doctor's appointment?
I just, I walked around and looked at the different stuff there.
Right. Okay. But you don't know why, how that, when did that come about? When did you start telling people that?
Two weeks ago, I guess. Two, 3 weeks ago. It's kind of, the wheels were coming off the bus.
What made you think the wheels were coming off?
I just felt like they were. And mentally, I also felt like it just was coming off the bus.
Okay. What about the gallbladder surgery?
It wasn't true.
Right. When would that come about?
It was around the same time.
Okay. Any reason you told your friends and family about that?
So,
Is it because of attention? I mean,
I don't really like things that I don't really pay attention because I have a lot of wonderful friends.
right.
And that's the thing that greatly concerned me is I didn't need it
Right.
because
But did you like the attention? Or?
not really, no, I didn't.
Okay.
But I'm just, I don't know what caused me to tell you that clearly it wasn't true.
Right.
That's, so no, you're exactly right, it's, I wasn't really attention at all.
When did you tell people about the gallbladder surgery?
It's around the same time. This is about 3 weeks.
About 3 weeks ago. A couple of questions about the embezzlement of the Brad Miller campaign, and I'm not interested in going really too deep into that. When did you start working for Sky Blue or Blue Sky?
April of 2010.
Okay. And when did you start becoming involved in the Brad Miller campaign?
This would have been February of 2011.
Okay. Now, in February 2011, you were taking on months to do. Well, when did you take over the finances of that campaign? Or at least the donor? Around that time? Okay. And what exactly was your role? What were your responsibilities? Yeah, is there water or ice in the cup for you?
I'm limited in the amount of water I can drink.
Okay. What exactly were your responsibilities?
Basically,
Okay. Are you also making deposits, or
yes,
who else has access to that account?
Jamie
Okay. As far as writing checks, who had the authority to write a check?
did. Jamie
What about yourself?
did. Yes,
Just the two of you?
yes.
No one else?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. How much oversight? You're in charge of the account. Is that something Jamie's looking at on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or is she ever looking at it? I mean, I just don't know what her responsibilities
She
are.
wasn't.
She wasn't looking at it? That was your sole responsibility? I asked you last time about how much money you think that you'd taken from that account. You thought it was $20,000. And you said you were writing yourself checks and signing those checks. Were you paying any of your personal bills out of that account? In other words, were you making like a car payment or a rent payment? Okay. So, cable bill wasn't being paid out of there, rent, car,
I was just
write yourself a check. Do you know when that might have started?
August of that year.
August 2011. What happened in August 2011 that started that? Were you short on a bill, or? Okay. Just living beyond your means, or?
Living close.
Okay. And just this extra money was just trying to make it a little easier and a little more comfortable? Do you, I mean, I won't put words in your mouth, but what do you spend the money on?
It was clothes or went to dinner, or I didn't live very lavish.
You giving the money away, or is it all on yourself for yourself? So just clothes, going out to dinner?
Yeah, there's frivolous stuff, but
Okay.
some,
Right.
I know this is a separate entity.
It is,
It may
absolutely.
be something I wouldn't feel more comfortable if I did have an attorney to talk with.
Okay.
About, because I know it's something totally separate on its own.
Okay. So, I just want to clarify here. Do you not want to talk about the finances anymore without an attorney, or do you, what would you like?
I'm
Or
probably more comfortable not to without an attorney.
is that just the financial stuff, or
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, just.
Just the financial stuff, okay. Okay. On Monday, when you went over to Jamie Nate's house, do you know about what time you got there?
It was later in the evening, we probably 4:30-ish probably.
Okay. And when you get there, who's there?
Gee,
And what do you do when you get there with Jamie?
we just started talking, so Christina, talking about
Okay. Talking about work at all, or?
a little bit, and not a lot mainly, it's just talking about the week.
Okay. What work conversation came up?
We were starting to go over,
Okay. My understanding is that you and Jamie met with John Wallace earlier in the week to discuss closing out the books. And that there were these discrepancy issues. Did that conversation come up between you and Jamie on Monday afternoon?
that,
So that's not what you guys are talking about. Why wouldn't you be talking about it? I mean, that seems to be the only thing left to do as far as the Pat no idea thing.
well, we talked about, earlier in the year to pay off some of the debts. Brad reached out to donors, and they could donate to his state campaign. Campaign reimburse them,
Right.
federal campaign reimburse them, and then we'll pay back debts. We were just gonna go over some of those people who had to the state accounts.
But you remember, I think you met with John Wallace last Tuesday, I think it was,
Yeah, it was there, it
to
was,
discuss these FEC forms. And
yeah, well, it was just a quarter file.
correct. Right.
I gathered that there wasn't anything wrong. I mean, I thought it was just pretty routine,
Mm-hmm.
what I gathered,
And it may have been.
but, yeah, that's what I gathered.
Okay.
Was just very routine. So,
Okay.
I didn't see any red flags or anything.
You're sitting there with Jamie on Monday afternoon. She didn't bring up the fact that the books weren't matching up right. I mean, that's the only thing left to talk about, John.
we
Is,
said, no, we weren't. We had to start talking about that.
did you sense that eventually it would have to come up?
Yeah, I don't think that conversation.
Absolutely. How long do you think you and Jamie were there prior to Nation coming home?
10, 15 minutes maybe.
Okay. I know you told me last time that this knife you carried in your bag, the bag was on that stool there. How long had you think you were carrying that knife with you?
Two, 3 weeks.
Okay. And where did that knife come from?
I bought it. Here, Steve.
You remember which Harris teeter?
One. Just,
You're all right. I know you want to make sure you get it right.
no, I do. I'm just
Yep.
pain and everything else. I'm just trying to. Was the Harris teeter and
Amy, you have a phone call at the front desk, Amy.
like false hopes and spread force. Spread English.
Okay. And you think that was 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Yes, sir.
And why did you buy that knife?
I was having a down day. Nothing clear.
When you say a down day, you weren't thinking clearly. Is this to hurt yourself? Is it to hurt?
And it was just, no, it was just a hurt myself.
Okay. Do you think this was brought on by this money situation, or?
To be honest with you, sir,
Right.
I've honestly given that a lot of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was just that, I would have faced it, and I would have faced the consequences. And I would never over that. I honestly feel like I would have literally just faced it and dealt with it without
But this depression and your thinking of hurting yourself, is that coming about because of the money situation?
No, I don't think so. No.
Because eventually, you know, that's going to have to come to light.
Yeah.
And that's coming soon.
And I had this attitude when he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to deal with it. And I would have never hurt anyone over it.
Okay, so where is this depression and this thought of hurting yourself coming from?
I've had thoughts with him for a while. I spoke with a psychiatrist.
Okay. Any other attempts in the past to ever hurt yourself?
I've thought about it
Okay.
a lot. For some days, that's all I think about. You know, maybe several times a day.
Okay. Now, last time I spoke to you, you recall that Nation came home. You met him in the hallway. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Nation had gone upstairs, and Jamie's in the kitchen at the table. And that's when you go in there and you recall grabbing the knife. Do you remember anything else after that point? Okay.
No, I do.
Okay.
I wasn't glad because I've been laying here. I remember
Mhm.
shards of things.
Okay. What are you remembering now?
The only thing I remember is I just remember I was just something.
Where, first, or
first.
where is she at in relation to you?
She's walking behind.
Okay. You have to help me out here. She's in the kitchen. Is she sitting at the table, or
She's
sitting on one of the stools there?
sitting, yes.
Okay, your book bag is on that bar, I guess, or stool is
Yeah.
by the living room.
Yeah.
You get the knife.
Yeah.
Is her back to you at that point from where she sits? It was, okay. And after you stab her in the back, what happens?
She returned to look.
Okay.
That's all I remember.
Did she say anything to you?
I don't think it came out.
You remember hearing her scream for nation?
Maybe talk about this just a little bit.
Yeah, okay, let's get past that a little bit. What was your thought about, after this happens, you going home? Where are you going to go
After what happened.
after this happens right here? What's your, you just going to go home?
After,
Yeah. Well, if the police hadn't shown up, and what happened, were you going to run away, go home?
I hadn't thought about that far. I was looking blind. So I didn't think about that.
Okay. Now, just like I told you earlier, my job is to find the truth. And one of the things I want to do is not only look at your phone records, your email records, your accounting records. There's no trips to out of the country to flee, nothing like that. You're going, there's no afterthought.
No. I will say this, I was going, it had gotten so bad, I actually thought about going to Las Vegas to go myself, but I canceled the trip.
Okay, when did that come about?
Monday to go, canceled.
How far along in planning did you get?
Oh, not booked it,
Oh, you did?
but canceled.
When did you book that trip?
Sunday night.
Okay. Is this Sunday night after you get back to Raleigh from the beach? Okay.
Yes.
And how did you go about booking that trip?
I put it on,
Okay. On a specific website, or did you go to an airline, a bus? What?
it was a airline. I can't remember
Okay.
which one.
And how was this paid for?
Goose Face.
Your credit card? Do you remember which credit card you used?
Yeah,
Your debit card? Which bank is that with?
it's with, this,
And you said you canceled it. When was it canceled?
technically, booked it, and it had to be slip it on something. It had to be on sometime.
Do you remember about what time Monday morning? Roughly?
So I don't remember that. I remember it had to be Monday.
Okay.
So I remember looking at Sunday.
And how did you go about canceling it?
I called.
You called?
Canceled.
called them from your cell phone?
Yes.
I assume it was the 1-800 number, but it wasn't. Was it not?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. It's just the customer service.
Okay. Why did you cancel it?
I have no idea. The time seemed like the thing to do. And after the record, so. No.
Okay. Any other plans for travel?
No.
Now, Monday night, my understanding is you had plans to spend the night there at Nate and Jamie's house. The following morning, you had a doctor's appointment. But there is no doctor's appointment. What time did you tell Jamie Nation that the appointment was? And where was that? Duke Hospital in Durham?
But there wasn't. So.
And what was your plan then?
I'm not sure, sir. I'm not sure what.
Did you ever think about telling him the truth?
Yeah. I would.
Why didn't you?
That's a great question.
How do you think they would have responded?
They would have been upset. Naturally, they've had every right to be. Stable I've been.
Mm-hmm.
In time, they would have understood, I think.
Now, how do you think they would have responded to you being honest with them about the embezzlement issue?
I think they would have understood. Not understand, I think they would have agreed and accept. But I think in time, they would have.
Mm-hmm.
Does everything.
Was there anything else that you lied to them about? There was money, the illnesses.
No.
Had you told your parents about your illnesses, or how far-reaching was it?
No.
Was that your sister?
Not talking to my sister. I mean, there's no bad blood there.
Right.
There's just nothing.
Now, we need to talk about what you remember about Monday evening at that kitchen table. Okay, I know it's difficult for us, but it's something we just need to push through, okay? After you stab her in the back, she turns around. You don't remember if she said anything. But I know she screams to Nation because that's how Nation comes downstairs. But what do you remember happening next? Unless we can go back and change it, John.
No.
Right, it is what it is.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to get away from it. I'm just.
Mm-hmm.
Screaming.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get it out. So I'm sure we had to go other places. I'm confident, but
Okay.
that's all I remember.
You remember when Nation came downstairs? I don't know how Nation ended up getting hurt.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You remember hurting yourself? Where were you when this happened? Where in the house? Where's Jamie and Nation? Okay. So you remember feeling numbness in your hands? What else do you remember? Remember the police coming? The officer screaming or something?
Screaming at as he
Okay. You remember going outside?
I remember being on the pavement,
Okay.
so I had to get up there somewhere.
Do you remember being in the ambulance? You told the EMS people it's been a long time coming. What do you think you meant by that?
I remember you were saying that.
Right.
I'm trying to
You told me that you were hearing voices telling you to hurt other people. Was it to hurt anybody else other than Nate and Jamie, or was it specifically Nate and Jamie?
It's just
Outside looking in, I see this person who's been lying to Nate and Jamie about these illnesses, who's been stealing from Nate and Jamie, is getting ready to come to head. If you've been carrying this knife for 2 to 3 weeks, you make these travel plans to Vegas, like you intentionally wanted to hurt me. Right. But you did.
No, right, you're right. You're right. I did. It's just, I can't have my head.
When I searched your car, there was an iPad in the car. Is that yours?
That is,
Okay. when I searched your house after last month, there was an iPad there. Is that also yours?
It's broken.
That was broken? Okay.
It was, it used to be working again.
But the one in the car is the one you primarily use?
Yes.
Okay. There was also a laptop in your trunk, in a box, from Brad Miller to Jamie. It was all wrapped up in bubble wrap.
It might have been when they were closing down my DC office.
Okay. Who did that laptop belong to?
It was probably to someone, it belonged to someone in DC.
Okay, why do you have it?
Because we were primarily ones.
It's in a box
Yeah.
from Brad Miller, mailed
It was
to
in a
Jamie.
FedEx box.
Yeah, but I don't remember. It was in a box, mailed to Jamie.
Yeah. I kept it because it was part of the event center we were closing down.
Okay. So was that a computer that you used? Or?
No, I never used it.
Okay. There are also some financial documents in there, your personal financial documents. One being late on some payments for your car. I think one of them was like $4,000 late and overdue, or maybe they want to be paid in full or something to that effect.
It may have been an old car, it wasn't this.
It wasn't this one.
No,
Which other car was that?
it was
How long have you had the Volvo?
Since my other cards. 10.
So you had the Volvo in 2010?
Yes.
So is Volvo paid for?
Yes.
Okay.
The deed should be.
You didn't finance it at, or
No, it's,
you paid cash for it?
yeah, it's in.
How are you able to pay cash for that car? I mean, like you said, you're kind of living tight. Things are, you're not making a whole lot of money, but you're able to maintain, but it's just tight.
That came through.
And again, it goes back to, did you write a check to the dealership, or? Okay. But you bought that Volvo in 2010.
Well, it was 2000.
I mean, when you bought the Volvo, did you pay cash?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Did you have, what other expenses did you have?
Rent, so,
Don said you always pay that. Credit cards?
no, it's not
Okay.
that. That's all.
Any other student loan type of debts, personal loans?
So,
Okay.
if there is a late payment, it's for,
The Nissan.
yes.
Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think I should know? Or anything you want me to know?
So,
Okay.
And that meeting was just a normal report meeting. The following day on Wednesday, you remember getting an email from John Walls? With some letters attached.
Yes, yes, yeah, it was, those are, to be honest, with you, those are minor things, I don't really think about it. I don't really think
just so I understand, because I looked at that letter, it looks like what the FEC was questioning was that an individual made a donation, and then a refund was issued to that individual in excess of the amount of the donation. Is that right? Is that the way it looks? You remember that to be correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, you remember sending John a email back on Thursday? You were working on it.
Yeah, was
Call back again.
yeah.
Send that on Thursday. Do you recall, were you aware of a check that Jamie looked at Time Warner for a debt that was owed by the campaign out of that campaign?
She had mentioned,
Okay, did she mention?
When did she mention that?
she mentioned that, I guess,
Mention that at everybody.
she did, but she also said that she was going to wait and see because that to her it sounded like the kind of scheme. It didn't sound very legitimate to her, so she was going to do background information to make sure that it was legitimate.
On why it bounced?
On the whole debt anyways, the whole $500. She was gonna check on it.
But you knew why.
Well,
I mean, in the back of your mind, you know why.
from December on, I did looked.
Right, but she's
So-
telling you, because Tom Warner Cable check bounced, and she's like, this isn't right, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
In your mind, you already know why.
In the back of my mind, I thought it could have been a theory, yes. That could be it, or it could have been, I don't say hoax, but it could have been a scheme.
But she hadn't talked to you about that check for 2 weeks.
It's about 2 weeks ago she mentioned.
It hadn't come up again since then.
Not that I remember.
The quarterly report that you discussed with John Wallace on Tuesday, balance that account showed. You have to look at it from how we look at it.
No, I'm
You
sure.
understand what I'm saying?
I'm sure you're saying.
And the way we're looking at it is, you knew that the amount of money that was presented to John Wallace on that day was not in that account. Agreed? Okay. And we had been told that at some point in time, because now, starting on Tuesday, that people are asking questions. Thursday, I think responded to them on the email saying, hey, I'm looking into it. You knew that was coming.
Yeah, but that was out of a previous, there was several quarters.
Well, I understand that. I understand that it wasn't a current thing, but you understood on Thursday that, there's no way I'm going to be able to respond to this. Without telling the truth, you agree with that? Okay. Why didn't you tell Mr. Wallace, just tell Mr. Wallace the truth?
I want to check into it. I mean, so wasn't quite clear why.
But you know, I mean, you just said, you knew why those numbers didn't match. So there really wasn't anything that you needed to check into. You knew why the numbers didn't match, right?
When I was I really wasn't quite sure what that statement meant.
Okay.
Researched
What the letter itself
Yeah,
meant.
what the letter itself meant.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
But you did know in the back of your
Yeah,
mind that
yeah.
those numbers won't work out.
Yeah.
Won't match
And
up.
the bottom line,
Right.
yes.
How much did the Volvo cost?
It's around
I mean, it's a fairly significant check you're gonna write. How much?
It was around, it had to be more than 10, probably, I would think.
About 10,000?
Because it wasn't, I got it because it was cheap
Mm-hmm.
for the price.
Yeah. If I told you that the investment amount is looking like it's in excess of $60,000, do you think that'd be about right, or?
Yes,
Is it safe to say that all of this, we have no idea because
yeah,
things
I'm not gonna,
Right.
I'm not gonna refute that.
right.
You just don't know.
I just,
I can appreciate that. I just don't remember Nate coming downstairs and saying anything to you. All right. Anything else? All right. Good question.
State has no further questions.
We're going to recess for then, and we'll resume at 2:30. Ladies and gentlemen, please recall the instructions. Don't talk about the case among yourselves or with anyone else. Don't form or express opinions about the outcome. No media or independent investigation into these matters. And please have no conversation or communication with parties, witnesses, or lawyers. If you leave your notepads and the notebooks in your chairs and gather in the deliberation room at 2:30. Everyone else, please remain seated. Take up before recess.
Not from the state, Your Honor.
If you give me a minute, Judge, I'll be right back and I can get the transcripts for you and the CD.
All right, let's mark, so I'm assuming we have two separate typewritten transcripts, one for the 23rd and one for the 20th. Let's identify the one for the 23rd as court 4, and the exhibit and the transcript of 425 as 5, and the, sorry about that. So 23 will be Court's Exhibit 6, 425 will be Court's Exhibit 7, and the disc you're providing me, is it just one disc?
Yeah, they have all 3 interviews on one day.
That's fine, so that'll be
But they are sequential, so
8. So that'll be Exhibit 8.
they go in the order of the 3 days.
That's fine. All right. We'll be in recess then. Anything further?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
All right. We'll be in recess till 2:30.